In the grand empire of Velastra there was a princess whose name was whispered like a sacred song, Princess Alindra Valis. She was the jewel of her people, the brightest light of the royal bloodline, and said to be so beautiful that even the stars bowed to her presence. Her golden eyes carried the glow of dawn, and her silver hair flowed like rivers of moonlight. Every gesture she made seemed perfect, and every word she spoke sounded like a melody. From every corner of the galaxy, princes, generals, and noblemen came to ask for her hand. They arrived in shining ships that glittered like diamonds. They brought treasures, crystals that sang, gardens that floated in the air, even stars sealed inside glass spheres. They spoke of eternal love, of loyalty, of power, but none could reach her heart. The truth was simple. She didn't believe them. Alindra had grown up surrounded by false smiles and polished lies. She had seen how men bowed before her father, the emperor, only to whisper greed when his back was turned. She had watched suitors kneel before her, not for her heart but for her throne. Their compliments felt heavy, their promises empty. Every time someone confessed their love, her heart would grow colder. It wasn't pride that made her distant, it was pain. She wanted someone to love her for who she truly was, not for her crown or beauty. But in the empire of perfection, where every being was crafted to impress, such love was a fantasy. One evening, as the sun sank behind the glass towers of the capital, Alindra sat by her window, watching the orange sky fade into violet. Her personal maid Lyra quietly brushed her hair and whispered, "Another prince arrives tomorrow, my lady. They say he's from the Azure Realms and tall, powerful, and wise." Alindra smiled sadly. "They always say that," she replied. "And they always leave when they see I'm not a prize to be won." Lyra hesitated. "Do you ever wish to love, princess?" The question made Alindra's chest tighten. She looked outside again, where airships drifted like glowing petals. "Every day," she said softly. "But I don't want a man who loves my crown. I want someone who sees me. Not the title, not the beauty, just me." But no one ever did. Rumors spread across the empire that the Princess of Velastra was cursed, that her heart was unreachable. Some said she was too proud, others whispered she was heartless. Yet none of them knew the truth. Her heart wasn't empty. It was waiting for something real. Her father, the emperor, worried for her. "My daughter," he said one night during dinner, "you cannot reject every suitor. The court begins to lose patience. The alliance demands a marriage." Alindra lifted her gaze slowly. "Should I give my life to a man I do not love just to please them?" The emperor sighed. "Love is a luxury, child. Duty is not." Those words stayed in her heart like a wound that would never heal. As weeks passed, more suitors arrived, stronger, richer, more handsome than the last. But all failed to move her. She would smile, she would listen, but her eyes always looked distant. After each one left, she returned to her window, where the stars glimmered in the silent night. And then, one morning, everything changed. A message came from a small, distant planet, a world considered primitive and fragile compared to Velastra's greatness. The humans of Earth had sent an envoy, a representative of peace. The court laughed when they heard the name of his world. Earth, that dirt-covered rock? The nobles mocked. What could such weak creatures offer? The emperor, curious, allowed the envoy to come. He expected nothing. The princess, too, felt indifferent. Another visitor, another polite face. What difference could it make? But when the human stepped into the grand hall of Velastra, something quiet shifted in the air. He didn't shine. He didn't boast. He walked simply, with calm eyes and a tired smile, as if he carried both pain and kindness in equal measure. His clothes were plain, his voice humble, and yet, when Alindra looked at him, she couldn't look away. For the first time in her life, the unreachable princess felt something stir inside her heart, a whisper, soft, strange, and warm, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The human's name was Ethan Vale, and when he entered the palace of Velastra, the court could hardly hide their laughter. A single man from a small unknown planet? No wings, no glowing jewels, no royal title. How could he ever be worthy of Princess Alindra? He didn't try to impress anyone. His posture was calm, his eyes steady. He bowed politely before the Emperor and said in a soft voice, "I come in peace. I bring no treasure, no magic, no power, only my honesty." The nobles whispered behind their hands. Some openly mocked him. One prince, covered in armor that shimmered like molten metal, scoffed, "How charming. A primitive thinks he can speak to royalty." Alindra, however, didn't look at him the way the others did. She watched quietly, curious. There was something about him, something unpolished yet sincere. She could not explain why, but a small flicker of interest awakened within her. For days Ethan attended meetings and dinners, quietly observing, never showing off. The other suitors tried to win the princess with extravagant displays, floating gardens, singing gems, illusions of fire and light. But Ethan only listened. He asked questions. He asked about her favorite flowers, the books she liked, even the stars she watched at night. No one had ever asked those things before. One evening, the palace gardens glowed under the twin moons. Alindra wandered along a path lined with silver-leaf trees, and Ethan followed at a respectful distance. Finally, she spoke softly. "Why do humans seem so fragile, yet so stubborn?" Ethan smiled faintly, his voice gentle. "Because we know what it means to be alive. Fragility is not weakness. It is proof we feel, we fight, and we care." Alindra paused. She had spent years surrounded by beings of perfection, flawless in body and power, yet none had ever spoken words that felt like truth. His words did not shine like jewels, but they warmed her heart in a way she hadn't realized she missed. Over the next few days, their conversations continued. He told stories of Earth, of oceans and mountains, of simple joys that seemed alien in a palace of wonders. He spoke of struggles, of failure, of human mistakes, yet with a quiet pride in the perseverance they brought. Alindra found herself laughing at things she never imagined she would. Stories of children's games, of storms that had toppled cities, of moments when humans had risen against impossible odds. The court noticed a change. The princess, who had been distant and cold toward every suitor, now lingered near Ethan, asking questions, listening intently. Whispers spread. She talks to him as if he is the only one who matters. Some nobles were outraged. A famous prince from a neighboring system confronted her. "You waste your time on a human?" he demanded. "He has nothing to offer you." Alindra lifted her gaze, her golden eyes steady. "I do not need him to offer me power, jewels, or glory," she said calmly. "I only need him to speak the truth, and he does." The human smiled but did not boast. He simply remained beside her, listening, learning, understanding. There was no magic, no grandeur, only the quiet honesty that the princess had been waiting for all her life. Even the palace guards noticed it. Where Alindra had once walked like a distant star, untouchable and untamed, now she moved with a lighter step, a softer gaze, a spark of life in her eyes. And yet, danger lingered. The court would not accept this lightly. The alien nobles, powerful and proud, were already plotting to humiliate Ethan, to show that a human could never be worthy of a Velastran princess. But Alindra did not care. For the first time, she was not thinking about duty, about expectation, or about alliances. She was thinking about him, about the man who had come from a world no one respected, and yet somehow, with nothing but honesty and courage, had begun to reach the heart of the princess who had refused everyone else. That night, Alindra stood by her window once more, looking at the distant stars. A single thought filled her mind. Perhaps this human could be different. Perhaps this human could be the one to finally break through the walls around her heart. And deep inside, she felt hope, fragile, uncertain, but brighter than any jewel, any spell, or any crown she had ever known. The human stranger had arrived, and for the first time, Princess Alindra wondered if her heart could finally be touched. Days passed in the palace, and the human, Ethan Vale, continued to remain quietly present in the princess's world. He never competed with the other suitors, never flaunted power or wealth, and never tried to impress with tricks or wonders. Yet somehow, his simple words and steady presence began to draw Princess Alindra closer. It started with small conversations in the palace gardens. While the alien nobles displayed illusions and grandeur, Ethan would sit on a worn wooden bench under the silver leaf trees, speaking softly. He asked her about the books she liked, the music that comforted her, even the quiet fears she carried behind her calm eyes. No one had ever asked such questions. No one had ever truly listened. One afternoon, the sky painted in gold and violet, Alindra walked beside him, a delicate lantern glowing at her side. She hesitated before speaking, as though unsure of the words she wanted to say. Finally, she asked, "Why do humans laugh even when the world is harsh?" Ethan smiled gently, and his eyes reflected something like warmth from a distant sun. "Because laughter reminds us we are alive," he said. "Even when life is hard, joy matters. Even if we fail, we can still choose to smile." Alindra paused, feeling a strange pull in her chest. No alien suitor had ever spoken this way. Not about life, not about feelings, not about her. Others had praised her beauty, her intelligence, her perfection. But Ethan spoke to her heart. "Do you ever feel lonely?" he asked quietly, almost as if he feared the answer. Alindra's gaze dropped. She had never admitted this to anyone. "Every day," she whispered. "I smile, I meet people, I laugh. But inside, I feel empty. No one sees me. They see a crown, a title. Not me." Ethan reached out a hand, gentle and steady. "I see you," he said. "Not the crown, not the title. You are Alindra, just you. That is enough for me." Her heart skipped a beat. No one had ever said such words to her. No one had ever truly seen her. For the first time in years, the walls she had built around her heart trembled. Over the next few days, their conversations deepened. She told him of her childhood, growing up in golden halls, always watched, always judged. She shared memories of quiet nights by her window, staring at stars she couldn't reach, longing for someone to understand her. Ethan listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. He asked gentle questions that made her think, made her feel, made her laugh. One evening, as the moons rose high and the palace gardens glowed silver, Ethan spoke of Earth, of oceans and mountains, of storms that tore cities apart, yet of people who rebuilt with hope. He told stories of ordinary humans performing extraordinary acts of kindness, courage, and love. Alindra listened, captivated. "Your world sounds alive," she whispered. "Even in its struggles, it feels real. Different from Velastra, where everything is perfect but hollow." Ethan smiled softly. "Perfection is easy, but living with flaws, with pain, and still choosing to care, that is true strength." For the first time, Alindra felt drawn to someone not because of power or glory, but because of heart and courage. She had admired many in her life, but admiration was empty without connection. With Ethan, she felt something rare, something dangerous, the stirring of hope, of desire, of love. Yet the court was not blind. Whispers of scandal began to spread. The alien nobles muttered that the princess was spending too much time with a human, a creature unworthy of Velastran blood. They watched with anger, mocking their traditions, certain Ethan could never succeed where thousands had failed. Alindra ignored them. When she was with Ethan, the palace, the court, the expectations all faded. She felt alive. She felt seen. She felt understood. As they walked together under the silver-leaf trees, Alindra allowed herself to speak a truth she had never voiced aloud. "I have waited a long time for someone to see me, not the title I carry, but me. And somehow you see everything I am." Ethan's hand brushed hers, not touching too firmly, but enough to warm her. "I see you, Alindra, and I will not stop, no matter what the world says. You deserve someone who fights for you, and not for the crown, but for the heart behind it." And in that gentle moment, under the twin moons and silver leaves, Princess Elindra realized something terrifying and wonderful. Her heart, once frozen, had begun to melt. For the first time in her life, she wanted more than admiration. She wanted him, she wanted the human who dared to see her, and maybe, just maybe, she wanted to love him back. The palace of Velastra was a place of beauty and splendor, yet beneath the shining walls, whispers of doubt and anger began to stir. The alien nobles were growing restless. Princess Elindra, who had once greeted every suitor with polite indifference, now lingered with the human, Ethan Vale. The court could not understand it. How could a fragile human, from a primitive planet, capture the attention of the most perfect woman in the galaxy? Some said it was foolishness. Others claimed it was a disgrace. But the princess did not care. One afternoon in the grand hall of the palace, Lord Zyron, a powerful alien noble with scales that shimmered like molten metal, decided to confront the human. He strode toward Ethan, his armor clanking, the court silent in anticipation. "You, human," Zyron said, his voice cold, echoing off the golden walls. "Do you think you are worthy of the princess? Do you believe your weak body and fragile mind can stand beside her?" Ethan did not flinch. His calm eyes met Zyron's fiery gaze. "I do not think about worthiness," he said quietly. "I only know that I will not fail her. I will fight for her, not for her crown, but for her heart." A ripple of shock moved through the court. No suitor had ever spoken this way. They expected fear, submission, or excuses. Yet Ethan's words were simple, honest, and unwavering. The princess, standing nearby, felt her chest tighten. His courage, so quiet and humble, stirred something deep within her. She wanted to reach for him, to protect him from the wrath of the court. She wanted to whisper that she believed in him, even if the universe did not. Zyron sneered, clearly insulted by Ethan's defiance. "If words are all you have, they will not save you. Prove your claim, human. Face me in the arena of honor tomorrow. Let your strength show your intentions." A gasp ran through the court. The arena of honor was not a place for talk or diplomacy. It was a battlefield, a test of power and skill. Zyron, 8 feet tall, covered in armor and trained for centuries, was certain that the human would fall in seconds. Ethan did not hesitate. "I accept," he said softly, his voice steady, carrying more determination than anyone in the hall had ever seen. The court erupted with laughter and mockery. Nobles pointed, some shouting insults. "He will die. A human dares to challenge an alien warrior. How foolish!" But Elindra's eyes burned with something the court could not see. She did not laugh. She did not sneer. She only looked at Ethan and saw the same quiet courage that had drawn her to him from the beginning. That night, the palace was restless. Guards whispered about the human's audacity. The suitors seethed in jealousy. But in the princess's chambers, Elindra stood by her window staring at the stars. She spoke softly to herself, words only she could hear. "He is small, fragile, and yet he is brave. How can someone so simple make me feel like this?" Her hand brushed the pendant she wore, a gift from her mother long ago. It had always been a symbol of duty, a reminder that she must obey the rules of her kingdom. But now it felt heavy with expectation, and yet it also felt like a chain she was ready to break. Elindra knew the path ahead was dangerous. If Ethan lost in the arena, it would not only humiliate him, but it could bring shame upon her as well. The court would demand obedience, loyalty, and conformity. No human had ever stood in that arena, and most believed no human could survive. But she did not fear for herself. She feared for him. And that fear, more than anything, revealed the truth she had been hiding for so long. She had begun to care for him deeply. She could not stop the thoughts that swirled in her mind. His soft words, his gentle smile, the way he looked at her as if she were not a princess, but a person. For the first time, Elindra felt real hope. Not the fleeting hope of a suitor's gift, not the shallow hope of admiration or flattery, but the strong burning hope that maybe, just maybe, love could be found in the most unexpected place. with a human from a distant, fragile world. And so, as the moons rose over the palace towers and the court continued its whispers of mockery, Princess Alindra resolved silently she would stand by him. No matter what, the stage was set. The human would face the arena. And the princess would witness the courage that might change everything, not just for him but for both of them, and perhaps for the entire empire. The morning of the Arena of Honor arrived with a tense, golden light spilling across the palace grounds. Citizens, nobles, and soldiers gathered, filling the massive Colosseum with whispers, gasps, and predictions of disaster. Princess Alindra stood at the edge of the viewing platform, her heart pounding, her hands clenched in quiet fear and hope. Across the arena, Lord Xiron towered over everyone, 8 feet of muscle and scale, his armor glinting like molten fire, his eyes burning with pride and cruelty. The crowd watched him as if he were the sun itself, unbeatable, unstoppable, perfect. And then the human stepped forward. Ethan Vale walked into the arena with nothing but a simple combat suit, no weapons, no enhancements, no shields. Every eye in the Colosseum widened in shock. A human and fragile, small, unarmored, dared to face Xiron. Laughter and scorn rippled through the spectators. Alindra's chest tightened. She could feel the weight of everyone's disbelief, yet beneath it a quiet trust in Ethan's strength began to grow. She knew he did not rely on magic or power. He relied on something far more dangerous: courage, will, and heart. The gong sounded, echoing through the massive arena. Xiron lunged like lightning, scales flashing, claws aimed to strike. Ethan dodged, not with superhuman speed but with careful timing, studying the movements of the alien. Every instinct, every memory of survival guided his motions. The crowd gasped as Ethan ducked and rolled, barely avoiding a blow that would have shattered bones. He felt pain already, a slash across his arm, a bruise forming along his side, yet he did not stop. Every strike he avoided, every movement he made was calculated, not with strength but with intelligence, not with power but with courage. Xiron's frustration grew. How could this fragile human survive even a few moments? He attacked with more ferocity, more speed, yet Ethan adapted. He used the arena itself, the pillars, the walls, the uneven ground, turning the alien's strength against him. The crowd's laughter faded. Whispers turned to awe. Some aliens began to murmur, "How? Is he still standing?" Alindra could not breathe. Every movement of Ethan's was perfect, yet imperfect in a human way. He stumbled, he faltered, he took blows that would have felled any other creature. And still he stood, still he moved forward. Still he did not yield. Hours, it seemed, passed. Sweat and blood streaked Ethan's face, his arms ached. His breath came ragged, but his eyes never left Xiron. He did not fight for glory. He fought for the princess and for her trust, her heart, her belief that even the smallest could stand against the mighty. Finally, with a deft maneuver, Ethan used Xiron's own momentum to send the towering alien crashing into the ground. The arena went silent. Xiron struggled to rise, anger and disbelief burning in his eyes. But the human remained standing, barely holding himself upright, wounded but undefeated. Alindra's breath caught in her throat. Tears welled in her golden eyes as she whispered to herself, He did it. He did it for me." Ethan turned to face the princess, his chest heaving, a faint, exhausted smile on his bloodied face. "I promised I would fight for you," he said quietly. "Not for your crown, not for your title, but for you. Always you." The silence broke into thunderous applause, some in admiration, some in shock, some in disbelief. But Alindra did not hear the crowd. She only heard him, and in that moment, the walls around her heart crumbled completely. She descended from her platform without hesitation, her gown brushing the marble floor, and rushed to Ethan's side. The court could only gasp. No princess had ever done such a thing. Ignored protocol, ignored power, ignored expectation, to honor a human. Alindra knelt beside him, holding his hand with trembling fingers. You have shown me what I have been waiting for, she said, voice breaking. You fought not for glory, not for honor, but for me. And in doing so, you have already won. Ethan looked at her, exhausted but alive, and whispered, Then all the effort was worth it, because it is you. And in that moment, the impossible became reality. A fragile human had stood against the mightiest of Velastra and survived. Not just with skill or courage, but with heart. And Princess Alindra realized, with a strength she had never felt before, that she had found someone who could see her, truly see her, in a way no one else ever could. The arena had fallen silent. The crowd stared, some in disbelief, some in admiration, as Ethan Vale, the human who had defied every expectation, stood wounded but victorious. Princess Alindra descended from her viewing platform without hesitation. Her gown shimmered in the afternoon sun, yet it was her eyes, golden and wide with emotion, that drew every gaze. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as they reached for his. Blood streaked his face, his arm hung stiffly at his side, and yet in that fragile, exhausted frame, he seemed larger than any alien warrior. He had fought not for glory, not for titles, not for riches, but for her heart. Elindra's voice was soft, barely more than a whisper, yet it carried across the arena. Ethan, why? She asked, tears brimming. Why would you risk everything for me? He managed a faint, weary smile. Because someone had to, he said. Someone had to show everyone, that you are worth fighting for. That your heart matters more than crowns, more than power, more than expectation. Her chest ached. No one had ever spoken to her this way. No one had ever truly seen her. Beyond the golden gown, beyond the perfect smile, beyond the title of Princess of Velastra. And yet here was a human, fragile, flawed, imperfect, who had not only seen her but had risked everything for her. She brushed her fingers gently across his cheek. All my life, everyone has wanted something from me. Loyalty, obedience, power, but you only wanted me. Ethan shook his head slightly, wincing from the pain of the blows he had taken. I don't need anything else. Just you, just your heart. That is enough. Alindra's tears fell freely now. For years she had built walls around herself. Walls of ice and duty. Walls that no suitor, no warrior, no alien noble had ever breached. Yet Ethan, with his quiet courage and gentle words, had done what no one else could. He had reached her heart. She took his hand in both of hers, holding it like a lifeline. I've never felt like this before, she admitted, voice trembling. I've never wanted anyone not like this. Not truly. But with you, I feel alive. I feel seen, I feel love. Ethan's eyes softened and he squeezed her hand with careful strength. Then it is real, he said simply, and I promise I will never stop proving it to you. No matter what the court says, no matter what the world expects, I will stand by you, always. The princess looked around. The nobles were silent, the crowd holding its breath. No one had ever seen a human and a princess together like this. She realized in that moment that she no longer cared what they thought. Their judgment, their rules, their expectations, none of it mattered. What mattered was here, in her hands, in his eyes, in the steady warmth of his presence. She leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. Then I choose you, she whispered. Not for your strength, not for your courage, but for you. Only you. Ethan's chest rose and fell with relief and exhaustion. I'll protect that choice, he said softly. I'll protect you, and if you let me, I'll spend my life proving it. The world around them seemed to fade. The sun, the Colosseum, the distant mountains, all of it blurred into insignificance. For the first time, Princess Alindra felt completely free. Free from duty. Free from expectation. Free from the loneliness that had haunted her heart for so long. And in that quiet, fragile moment of trust and surrender, something extraordinary happened. Two hearts from two completely different worlds connected in a bond that was stronger than any crown, any army, any magic. A human and